Welcome everyone for today's class, which is 5th class in Bhagavad Bhakti Shastri. Okay, so we'll start with Mangalacharan. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Chakshurimelitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupakatamayim Dadati Swapadantika Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadikamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pacharya Namaste Ashwarvadi Pashyatale Om Mahadanyaya Krishna Prem Hridayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Namaste Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Vrishabhanu Sute Dev Pranamami Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhabhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, before we start today's discussion, can some devotees share what we learned yesterday? Yes, please.
Prabhuji, we started with the second chapter where it is mentioned, the Lord Krishna starts speaking, and basically Lord is initially telling Arjuna that you are lamenting for which is not worthy of lamenting, like you are more thinking about bodily consciousness. Like Prabhupada gave the example of saving the dress of the drowning man, but saving the man himself,
Okay.
So
yeah.
That distinction between material body and spirit soul.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything? Yes, Proj. Prasanna Gopal.
Yes, Prabhuji, actually, you discussed in the beginning that the fourth reason of destroying the family tradition,
yes.
dynasties will be lost by war. That was the fourth reason which Arjuna gave to Krishna.
Yeah.
And because of that, sequentially you said that because of Kula Dharma Nash, then the women will not be protected, and because of the wrong progeny will be created, and the forefathers will not be offered, will not be given as a offerings. So in this way, everything will be in the devastated, like all the dynasty will be devastated. So that was the reason. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Sankaran Kula Dharma Nash. That point.
Okay. Yes. Okay, Arun Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Getting my voice, Prabhuji?
Yes.
So, like yesterday we discussed that Arjuna continued his reason for not fighting, and we discussed how an ashram will be destroyed, and we had a group discussion on marriage, women, and parenting, different scenarios. After that, like Arjuna says that it is Mahapap, and therefore I should not do. But then Krishna gave the reason that even if you are not fighting, they are already ready to fight. So he says, okay, I will not fight. What's the problem? Then Krishna says, after that, Arjuna starts lamenting, and then he sits on chariot. But then, like second chapter, we had an overview of that. Then Krishna reprimanded Arjuna as a Kshatriya. That it's not that the action done by Arjuna does not befit Kshatriya. So then Arjuna again stood up, but then he gives one more reason, and then again after he said that it would not be righteous, like against righteousness. Again becomes like morose, and again sits down on the chariot. And then now we will see that like Arjuna will surrender, and Krishna will start speaking, guiding him.
Okay. Thank you. So Arjuna gives two reasons. First is respect, and then another is righteousness. He does not want to enjoy a kingdom that is tainted with the blood of his relatives. Okay, so then Arjuna gets really confused. He encounters three uncertainties. So whether he should fight or beg. Okay, if he fights, whether he will win or not. And if he wins and he gets a kingdom, is it worth ruling and enjoying the kingdom or not? So all these three things. So then Arjuna understands himself that he is in a problem, and he surrenders to Krishna. Okay. Yeah, so we will start with this verse. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava pruchami tvam dharma sammoda chetaha.
कार्पण्यदोषोपहत स्वभावा पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेतः
Yat shreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapannam.
यश्रेयस्यानिश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्.
Okay. So Arjuna is saying that he has a dosha. So the dosha here refers to his affection for family members, which is on a material platform, which Arjuna also realizes it. Because of that, what is happening? He is feeling weak in discharging his duty, which is fighting, perplexed. He is getting a perplexity there. And he understands because he does not have this lack of knowledge of Brahman or this spiritual about the soul. So that knowledge he does not have properly. And because of that, he is fully confused in his duty. Dharma sammoda chetaha. So that's why he's telling Krishna, now I surrender to you. Please help me and tell me what I should do, what is good for me. Yes, Shreya Nishchitam Bruhitan me. Okay, so Arun bro, can you read the translation and purport?
So, translation. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am a disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Purport. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step, there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life, which happen without our desire. They are like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom.
Just a minute. So here Prabhupada is explaining about material perplexities, like how they take place naturally without anyone starting it. So Prabhupada is giving the analogy of a forest fire, which happens without anyone's intervention. So then the solution Prabhupada gives is to approach a spiritual master, as described in the shloka, that Vigyanardam sa Gurumeva Bigachet. Okay, Prabhu, so you can continue. The Vedic wisdom.
The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, one must approach a spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not therefore remain in material perplexities but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse.
Okay, so now Prabhupada is going to explain who are going to face the perplexities. Means what type of people experience these perplexities. Yes, please read.
Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who does not understand the problems of life. In the Brihad Aranakya Upanishad, the perplexed man is described as follows. Yo vayetat aksharam gargi adiviti vashamal lokat praiti sakrana. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human, and who thus quits this world like the cats and dogs, without understanding the science of self-realization. This human form of life is the most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is a Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize his body to solve all problems of life. Ya etadaksharam gargi vidit vasmal lokat taiti sa brahmana.
Okay. Yeah. So enough. I'll continue. So here, Prabhupada defined who are Kripanas. Kripanas are those who are not focused on self-realization, but rather they are focused on sense gratification. And they live a life similar to animals, like cats and dogs. That's what Prabhupada says. So they don't really understand the importance of human life and try to solve the real problems of human life. Okay. So we see in the current world, there is a great lack of focus on spirituality and focus on spiritual knowledge. So the complexities, day by day, they are increasing and multiplying. If you see the problem of rich and poor, if the rich is spiritually focused, then they will be satisfied and they become charitable. And if they become charitable, then automatically the problem of poverty, unemployment, these things will get solved to a great extent. But the thing, they are not satisfied. So they want to earn more, and they that's why they increase corruption and all. And they exploit the poor people and they increase poverty in some way. And the poor people also, they need basic amenities, but they are also not content. They want to become more richer and richer. So they either work hard or they commit crime. So they cannot compete with rich people. So they commit crime or they try some other means. So that way, if there is spiritual focus and satisfaction, these problems were not. That's why they were not there in the olden times. But now they are there because the focus is not. And also the economy, also it is all sensuality based. So it's based on selling videos, content, media content. Is based on selling food products, luxury products. So, and it is focused on advertising, promotion. So the whole economy is also based on sense gratification. And the education also, it is one of the purpose of education is to make the children good consumers of the products and good producers of the products. So that's why it creates complexities. Initially there is pollution, so now they're trying to solve, and now there is overpopulation in cities. They're trying to construct metros and all. So it's like one problem, they're again trying another material solution. Again, it is multiplying. Main thing is the focus is on sense gratification. So if that focus is shifted to spiritual knowledge and spiritual culture, spiritual life, spiritual values, then these complexities reduce. Okay, so then Prabhupada is further elaborating on miserly kripanas, and is calling that as a skin disease. Okay, so here now Prabhupada is telling about the condition of Arjuna. So okay, I'll read it. So Prabhupada is saying, being intelligent, Arjuna could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still, on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. So the problem with Arjuna is his affection for family members, because of which he is not able to do his duty as a Kshatriya, that is to fight with them. So the Arjuna understands this problem, and Arjuna is telling Krishna to solve it. So Prabhupada is saying that Arjuna wants to stop all friendly talks, and he wants to talk serious thing. Okay. And Prabhupada is then further elaborating on the mood of hearing Gita. The mood is being told in this shloka. And yet foolish mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna the person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without, and one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad. Okay. So now Krishna may say, but see, Arjuna even knows the problem, which means half the problem is solved in one sense. Then Krishna in the next shloka says, okay, but you can also find solution based on your scriptural understanding. Because we see Arjuna has a good scriptural knowledge. He quotes from Artha Shastra, Dharma Shastra, and Arjuna knows many dharma and all. So you can do that. But Arjuna says, no, I am not able to do it. Only you can help me. So that is that desperation of Arjuna to seek solution from Krishna is being shown in the next shloka. Okay. Nahi prapsyami mam apanyudyad yashokam uchoshanam indriyanam.
Nahi prapsami mama anupadyad yachokam yashosnama indriyanam.
Avapya bhumau asapatnam buddham rajam suranam apichadipatyam.
Avapya bhunam asapatnam radham rajam suranapi adhichapyadam.
Okay, so the translation goes like this. I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I'll not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So here Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you're knowledgeable of the scriptures. Carry out action after considering your own benefit in light of the scriptures. Why should you be a disciple of me, a friend? Arjuna says, I don't see what action will remove my lamentation. He defines that lamentation. It is drying up my senses. Therefore, to destroy this lamentation, I surrender to you. Okay. Bhakti Lila Matas, can you read the purport?
Yes, Rajan. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on the knowledge of the principle of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of the spiritual master, Lord Sri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problem, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such a perplexity without the help of the spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problem of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna conscious is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problem of life.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Prabhupada is making an important statement here that academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. So yeah, based on these things, one cannot exactly know the spiritual knowledge and practice spiritual life. So it only comes by hearing from a spiritual master and learning from him. And under his guidance only one can practice. So yeah, we see means even the rich people and all, they are also miserable. So that interaction of Radhanath Maharaj with Mother Teresa is there. So she says that I see poor children in the slums of Kolkata when they are dying. I see a hope in them. But very rich people in America, they die with a sorry face. So, so that is always there. So it also applies in our life, like knowing philosophy may not solve all the problems, but our desires needs to be purified. So the desires for sense gratification, the desires to enjoy the world, so they need to be purified. So that happens only by the mercy of devotees and Krishna. It we cannot the material attachments, they are not gross, they are very subtle. Material gross attachments, like if something is tied up, we can cut that, but these are subtle attachments, we cannot cut all ourselves. So that only has to be done by Krishna. So when we surrender to spiritual master and do service through mercy of spiritual master and Krishna, our desires get purified. So then that when Cheto Darpanam Arjanam happens, so then we can see the spiritual truths. Otherwise, even like Hiranyakashipu also knows the philosophy of this soul, but he could not practice it because the material desires are strong, and he did not take shelter of a spiritual master. So now later, Prabhupada gives the qualification of a spiritual master, Kibu Vipra Kibanyasi Shudra Kenama, Ye Krishna Tattva Veda, say Guru hai. Then Prabhupada is saying that economic progress and advanced civilization does not guarantee that these problems are solved. I'll read it. The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways. Yeah. So that's what material advancement and technological advancement does not guarantee that these problems are solved. Okay. So now Sanjay describes Arjuna's thing. Arjuna now again tells, I will not fight in this sloka. Sanjay Vacha Eva Mukta Rishikesham Gudakesha Parantapa.
Sanjaya uvacha evamukta ऋषिकेश गुडाकेश परन्तप
Na yotsya iti Govinda Uttva Tushnim Babhuva.
न योत्स इति गोविन्द युक्ता तूष्णीं बभूवः.
So Arjuna now again is telling here, I shall not fight. But here Sanjaya purposefully uses the words Rishikesha and Govinda. So indicating that Krishna is going to help Arjuna and Arjuna will again fight. So that's what thing is here. But Sanjaya disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies Parantapa. Although Arjuna was for the time being overwhelmed with false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. Krishna is addressed as Govinda and Rishikesha. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization and Krishna consciousness and would then surely fight. So this is what Sanjay is indicating also in the shloka. So then Krishna again going to speak, but this time as a spiritual guide, not as a friend. Earlier Krishna spoke as a friend. Okay. We'll read the shloka, we'll recite the shloka. Tamuvacha Hrishikesha Prasan Iva Bharata
तमोवाच ऋषिकेश प्रहसन्निव भारत
सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः.
तेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तम् इदं वच.
So the translation is, O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. So Prabhupada is telling why Krishna is smiling. He's explaining in the purport. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in superior position as the master of everyone, and yet the Lord agrees to be a friend, a son, or a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master with gravity as it is required. It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society, or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. Yeah. So Bhagavad Gita is for all. That's what Prabhupada is saying. So sometimes there is a misconception if somebody reads Bhagavad Gita, Kurukshetra will happen or something, but that is not exactly the case. So now Krishna is going to speak and he is going to initially only speak with very gravity, chastising Arjuna. So inside the shloka, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashochayan Anvashochashvam Pragyavadamsha Bhashase.
श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोचान्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादाश्च भाषसे
Gatasu agatasu cha nanushocanti panditah.
गतासु न गतासु च नानुशोचन्ति पंडिता.
Shreyas Bro, can you read the translation purpose?
Yes, Prabhuji. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Purport. The Lord at once took the position of the teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. The Lord said, you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is body and what is soul, does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition.
Okay, thank you. So Arjuna is telling Ashochayan means those you are lamenting for something which is not worthy of lamentation. So that Ashochayan Krishna is indicating about the sons of Dhritarashtra who are not even worthy of lamentation. They are Ashochayan. You are Anvasha, you are lamenting for them. And also about worthy of worship. How can I fight with those worthy of worship? So this is what Krishna is relating to it. These are not worthy of lamentation. So then Krishna is telling Gatasu Agatasu cha. So what is Gatasu? Gatasu is the gross body. Anyhow, it is going to perish. So no point of lamentation. So if not today, tomorrow the gross body is going to perish. So that is Gatasu. If not being killed in the war, Bhishma and Drona Kauravas will have to leave their bodies by nature's arrangement. So that way it is not worthy of lamentation. Subtle bodies, they are going to stay till liberation. So they come under Agatasu. And the soul, it is unaffected by six changes, and it is also it's going to be there eternally. So there is no point in lamentation. So this lamentation while executing your duty, so that is what Krishna is referring to. So there is no need to do lament about these things when you are executing your duty. So that's what. So now, okay, maybe you can read from here. Arjuna argued that.
Yes. Arjuna argued that religious principles should be given more importance than politics or sociology, but he did not know that the knowledge of matter, soul, and the supreme is even more important than religious formularies. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is unborn and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause for lamentation, regardless of the condition of the material body.
Okay, okay, thank you. So, executing duty is the nature of the soul. So, to Varnashma Dharma is the nature of the soul, which Prabhupada is going to explain after this section. So here Prabhupada is telling that earlier we saw in the first chapter, there is a conflict between Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra or Niti Shastra. Niti Shastra says you should not kill your relatives, you will incur sin. Dharma Shastra says you can kill the aggressors. But now the Prabhupada and our Acharyas say Jnana Shastra. Jnana Shastra refers to the spiritual knowledge, the knowledge of the Brahman and the knowledge of the soul. So this knowledge and the Shastra and what the Shastras that are based on this knowledge, they are more important or they should be given more priority than Dharma Shastra and Niti Shastra. So now we are entering this section of the knowledge of soul. So here Krishna explains various characteristics of soul with the intention of inspiring and giving confidence to Arjuna that he should fight and he should do his duty as a Kshatriya. And he should not be worried about the results of Bhishma suffering and Arjuna, whether Arjuna winning or not winning, and Arjuna not able to enjoy the kingdom without Kauravas. So all these results, he should not worry, but he should do his duty to as fighting. So with that intention, Krishna explains it. Sometimes Krishna repeats the concepts so that the concepts become more clear, and it is the way of emphasizing things. So in the next till 30 shlokas, we will go through the knowledge of soul. So first shloka will recite Natvevaham jatunasham natvam neme janadipa
नत्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेहे जनाधिपः
न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयम् अतः परम्
न चैव न
सर्वे
वयमतः परम्.
Okay, so Anuradha Mataji, can you read translation? Okay.
Hare Krishna. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. In the Vedas, in the Katha
just a
Upanishad.
minute, I'll first explain the context. So here Krishna wants to tell that Bhishma and Drona always existed. So by killing them, you're only going to kill their bodies, but as spiritual beings, they always existed. And of course, Krishna told in 3 statements, I always exist, you always exist, and these kings always exist. So Krishna existing eternally is different from the Jivas existing eternally. Means Krishna is beginning only giving the difference that Krishna is different, then Jivas are different. Though both of them exist simultaneously and eternally. So Prabhupada in this purport focuses on the difference between the Jiva and Krishna, which is eternal. Yes, Matas, so you can read. In the Vedas.
In the Vedas, in the Katha Upanishad, as well as in the Shweta Patara Upanishad, it is said that the personality of Godhead, container of innumerable living entities, in terms of different situations according to individual work and reaction of work. That Supreme Personality of Godhead is also by his plenary motions alive in the heart of only saintly persons see within and without with same Supreme Lord can actually
Probably in your background there is some noise. Is it?
Yeah. Mataji, you can continue.
Saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to perfect and eternal peace. Shall I read that? Nityo Nityanam Nityanam Tanaschetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidha Bhati Kaman Tama Atma Tama Ye Nu Pashyanti Hirag Tesham Shantihi Sharvasti Netrasham. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all the persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned, but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that he himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings, and the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their condition and in their liberated situation.
Okay. Yeah. So Prabhupada is emphasizing on this point that there is always the difference between the Lord and the Jivas, and it is eternal. Lord is always the maintainer of the Jivas, and Lord is always supreme. Yes, Mataji, can continue.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. Their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So here the emphasis is on individuality and eternality, and also the difference between the Jiva and the Supreme. So merging of the soul, it is from Mayavad or Advaitic philosophy. So they have two conceptions, like either after the leaving the body, the Jiva merges with Brahman. This is one thing they say, and another thing is once the ignorance, avidya, is destroyed, so then the Jiva realizes its non-difference with Brahman. So this is also they say, like it is told, the Danda Grahana Matrena Narah Narayano Bhavet. So this is their theory. But Prabhupada says that here Krishna already told that the difference between Jiva and the individuality is eternal. It's not that. And they say that the difference is there, but that is only in material. It is material. It is not spiritual. So Prabhupada argues that if it is material, then how Krishna can see it in a material way, because Krishna is beyond matter. Then Krishna will not, it does not work, because Krishna cannot come under the influence of matter. So that way it is not correct. And if you can, our Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, and many other scriptures say how Krishna is spiritual. Krishna is not material. So if you say Krishna is material, then all these things you are contradicting with all these Shrutis. So this is what Prabhupada uses these two logics to defeat that statements of Mayavadis. It's a little technical thing, but yeah, can do it. So then Prabhupada says the approach of Mayavadis is envious, so they cannot understand. Through this, you cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. I will read that statement. Yeah. So those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The non-devotee's approach to the teachings of Gita is something like that of a bee licking on a bottle of honey. One cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of the Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the book. Nor can the Gita be touched by persons who envy the very existence of the Lord. So therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of Gita is the most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentations made by the Mayavadis and warns that one who takes to such an understanding of Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Gita. Yeah. So that's what the individuality is eternal, and the difference between Jiva and Bhagavan is eternal. So, and the this verse is quoted to make the point that Bhishma and Drona are all spiritual beings, and so Arjuna need not lament. So now Arjuna may ask, but their body may get lost. But I am interacting with their body. I may not interact with their soul, but I appreciate that as souls they always exist. So now, but that is a cause of suffering for me. So now here Krishna will say, yeah, losing body is a natural thing in the world. Now, if it does not happen through war, it may happen through some other way. And anyhow, once they lose this old body in which they are there, Bhishma and Drona especially, they will get a young body and they will get a pious body because they are pious. So it is in one sense a point of celebration, not point of lamentation. So that is the point which Krishna makes through the next shloka. Okay, so we will read. We'll recite the shloka. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara.
देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा
Tata dehantar praptir न मुह्यति.
तथा देहान्तर प्राप्ति धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति.
Yes. So the conversation is like that. Bhishma and so Arjuna is saying Bhishma and Drona eternally exist as soul, but their bodies, which are object of affection, get destroyed. Krishna says, as one goes from young body to old body, and then again a new body. So Bhishma and Drona will get a new body, new young body. It should be source of jubilation, but not lamentation. So that is the point which Krishna is telling to Arjuna. Yeah. So these all conversations our acharyas have given, Baldev Vidyabhushan and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. This is one way to make sense of the flow of the shlokas. Okay, I can read. Isha Mataji, can you read translation? Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from the boyhood to the youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to the another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on the account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, and for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering, according to one's work in life. So, Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in next life, or at least a life in the heavenly bodies, for superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no cause of lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of individual soul, the super soul, and the nature, both material and spiritual, is called as dhira, or the sober man. Such a man is neither deluded by the changes of bodies.
Okay, thank you. So here, Prabhupada is speaking about dhira. So he is focused on the spiritual knowledge, and he's not affected. Means he sees this as a natural thing. Somebody from youth becoming old and then dying. So he's not bewildered by the changes because he understands that this is a natural process, that it is going to happen, and he will be focused on his duty, which is related to his spiritual, which is based on spiritual knowledge, based on the Shastras. So he will not be affected, means he will not deviate from his duty. So there may be some emotions and all, but he will not go away from his duty because of these changes, which are anyhow going to happen. They may happen in this way or some other way. So that way. Now again, Prabhupada is saying about again refuting the concept of merging. So I'll read it. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of spiritual souls cannot be entertained on the ground that the spiritual soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the Supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the Supreme souls being unchangeable. Yeah. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the Supreme exist eternally, Sanatana, and are called Shara. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. So, Prabhupada is saying that here, Dehinosmin Yata Dehe. So, the Dehina is always there. The Deha will become old and die. So, if the spirit soul is a constant, is the Jivatma is constant. If the Jivatma is unchangeable, so even the Paramatma, the Supreme Lord, is also unchangeable. So the Mayavadis say that the Brahman gets transformed into the Jivas in mode of passion, and again the Jivas, once they are freed from ignorance, avidya, they will again merge with Brahman. So this theory, this point of Mayavad philosophy, Prabhupada is contradicting, using this point from the shloka, that the soul is always unchangeable. Okay, so the context of this shloka is to make Arjuna confident that the Bhishma and Drona, their bodies are not going to dwindle. Means it is a natural course that the Bhishma and Drona will become old and die. So if it happens through fighting, it is not a problem, because anyhow they will get new bodies and young bodies. So now, based on this concept and the previous concept, that Bhishma's, Drona's bodies getting old is not a problem, and they are spiritual beings, they always exist. Krishna tells Arjuna to tolerate the pain of being separated physically from Bhishma and Drona in the next shloka. Matra sparshast kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agam.
Matra sparshasthu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada
Agamapaino anityas tam titikshas bharata.
Agamapaino anitya tam stitikshasya bharata.
Okay, so I will read it. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and the disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception. O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, here the shloka says Matra Sparsha. So, Matra means sense objects. Sense objects are form, touch, sight, smell, and sound. So these are the sense objects. Sparsha means experiencing the sense objects through our senses. Either seeing something beautiful, hearing something sweet. So this is all called matra sparsha. So here Krishna is indicating the matra sparsha, especially while executing our spiritual duty as per Varnashrama. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, when you are executing your duty as a Kshatriya, that is fighting, you may encounter different, you will get different experiences. Some are positive, some are negative through your senses. So the interactions with Bhishma, Drona, or the suffering or the pain that you come when Bhishma and Drona leave their body. So this Sukha and Dukkha are going to come. They are going to come. They are going to stay for some time, and they are going to. They have an end. Agama, Apayana, Anitya. So you tolerate them. You tolerate them with the understanding that these are temporary, and you focus on your spiritual duty as of fighting. So this is what Prabhupada explains it with examples and also gives some application. Yeah. So the first thing is about matra sparsha. It is our experience through senses of the sense objects while executing your duty. So Prabhupada says in the purport, in the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearance and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of March, January, February. It is very cold at that time. But in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Yeah. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. Yeah, because it is the duty. If it is a duty to take bath with cold water, that time, so it's again time, place, circumstance. So that time it is a regulation to take bath with cold water. So because that is their spiritual duty, so they were focused, and the shivering and all experience is transitory. It will be there for few little time. And the austerity of cooking in the hot season also is transitory, but the duty is to cook for the Lord and to offer bhoga and to distribute it to his devotees. So that is the thing. So even we see Prabhupada also while preaching in America, especially in the initial days, it was a lot of austerity. But Prabhupada went on with it, understanding the order of the spiritual master and the desire of Krishna, that Krishna consciousness be spread in the Western world. So Prabhupada went on with the austerities of being in poverty and facing the harsh cold. When Sumati Moraji told that it's going to be very cold, but Prabhupada went on with it. So because Prabhupada followed it, he could boldly write it also in the purport. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas. And although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge. Because by knowledge and devotional only one can liberate himself from the clutches of Maya. So yeah, how tolerance will lead to liberation will be clarified in the next shloka. So here also Prabhupada tells about the names of Arjuna being addressed as Kaunteya and Bharata, which also tell him that his greatness. That Krishna is telling you are from such great dynasties, so you should tolerate. So we will spend some time on difference between tolerance and repression. Sometimes it is not clearly understood. Oh, it looks small. I think we can increase the size. Okay. No, it's better. Okay, it's a little small, but I think it's now better. So the tolerance it's based on the spiritual understanding, that the temporary nature of material suffering and the material troubles and all. But if you see repression, the consideration is there is because of social pressure or because of selfish motives. One may, without doing anything, they may just go on with the pains they are getting. So that is repression. But in tolerance, there is very clear understanding that this suffering is temporary, and that understanding is there. And a person who is really tolerating, he's focused on his spiritual duty. But a person in repression, he will be bogged up by the suffering. His mind is more focused on avoiding the suffering, but he cannot do anything with it. So his mind is always worried about when the suffering will go and all. And that's what a tolerance person, he has no negative emotions, but a repression person means there may be resentment about people and all. So we will understand this with example. If we see Shiva, when Shiva is offended by Daksha, actually that time Shiva was in trance. He was meditating on Krishna. So that way he was focused on spiritual duty. And he also understood that Daksha is envious, but it's not going to be there for a long time. After some time, he may get purified, or the relationship may not exist also. It is also not eternal. So that way Shiva tolerated it. But Daksha, on the other hand, he was repressive. So what happened after? So Daksha was beheaded by Kala Bhairava, and then so then Daksha asked forgiveness from Shiva. But we again see that Daksha offended Narad Muni. So in one sense, Daksha actually did not tolerate, did not his consciousness was not proper. He asked forgiveness from Shiva because otherwise his karma means his post may get affected, and also that's why as a social pressure, as a custom, he asked forgiveness from Shiva, but he did not actually really think about because of I am after this post, I am after sense gratification. That's why I became envious of Shiva. So let me leave it. So that thing Daksha did not do. So that's why Daksha's case was more like repression. Yeah. Like we can also see if some like Ekadashi fasting, if you take example, that if somebody is focused and has no interest and attraction to chanting, and he does not want to be distracted by eating or something, if that is the consciousness, then that can be called as tolerance. Otherwise, if somebody says, okay, yeah, I should be known as a serious devotee, or this calculation, on Ekadashi, 1,000 times benefit we get. So because of that, one is forcefully doing some austerity of doing nirjala or something. So then that comes under repression. Okay. So tolerance, it takes us towards liberation, but repression, in one sense, it takes away from liberation, because there are negative emotions and all, and mind is not focused on mind is not spiritually focused. So real tolerance means your Krishna consciousness is not getting disturbed, but you are repressing. You are you have attachment, but you are forcing yourself to not to practice some austerity, but your mind is disturbed. Then it is not exact. It's not your Krishna consciousness gets disturbed. So one needs to take help to deal with such emotions. So this may happen in relationships, within devotees, or yeah, things like that. Okay. So So that's what Trinadapi Sunicena should be understood clearly and should not be misapplied. Okay. Yeah, and sometimes there may be mundane tolerance also, that a family may be struggling and the parents may be doing austerity for their children education. But this is not the tolerance which Krishna is talking about. Krishna is talking about tolerance based on spiritual knowledge. So this family here, they may be doing austerity with an expectation in future. Okay, once our child becomes very studies nicely and earns money, we can all together enjoy. So with that expectation, they may be doing they may be tolerating their present financial situation. So that kind of tolerance is not what Krishna is exactly encouraging. So the tolerance has to be based on spiritual knowledge and selflessness, on duty based on spiritual knowledge. Okay, so this is about this shloka. So we will go to the next shloka, where the benefit of tolerating Krishna explains. Yam hina vyatayante te purusham purushashabha.
Yam hina
Hinagatayante te purusha purushashabha.
Samadukka sukham dhiram swamrutattvaya kalpate.
Sukha-dukkam
Dukkam
sindhira
Swamritatvaya kalpate.
kalpate.
So here Krishna is saying that if you do the tolerance, you will get purified, and you will not that experience of duality, happiness and distress, that will slowly you will be reducing. You will be liberated from those duality, and slowly you will proceed towards liberation. So this is what. So Prabhupada initially explains the shloka and then gives the example of sannyas and sannyas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay. Yeah, I'll read it. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress is studying both is certainly eligible for liberation. So purport, anyone who is studying his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. If someone carries out his spiritual duty tolerating happiness and distress, one achieves liberation. In the Varnashrama institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyas, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyas order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such differences, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere, even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause, he took sannyas and was studying the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage. Yeah, so our spiritual duty basically means our ashrama, means whatever the rules and regulations given by Prabhupada and by the guidance of senior devotees, so that we need to follow, and they will definitely involve some austerities, some sacrifice. So that thing we have to tolerate, and also whatever occupation and all we are doing, we should try to be ethical and responsible. So in that also will need some sacrifice. So that also need to be there. So that is the thing. So this is one section of the knowledge of soul, and now another section will come. So I want to know if there are any questions till now what we have discussed. Yes, Prasanna Gopal.
Roji, actually, I'm still thinking about tolerance and repression, that comparison.
Yeah.
Very clearly understood, but
Yeah.
I want to just know one more thing, that it's like very thin line looks like between that both the things.
Yeah.
Both, like in the action perspective, if somebody is acting in certain way, it is look like both are, somebody may think it as a tolerance. At the same time, if you go in depth, then it is seen as a repression. Okay, because there is a selfless and selfishness comes in.
Yeah.
But sometimes to begin with certain activity or certain things, maybe in spirituality, if we want to bring, somebody is not doing Ekadashi example. So if somebody is not doing the Ekadashi, then we tell him the importance of Ekadashi. And he also, with that selfish mentality, he starts doing that Ekadashi. Okay. So it is example of repression. But is it okay to, in the beginning, follow the repression? And then slowly, by one's endeavors and by one's understanding, he will go to tolerance stage. Is it okay? Like,
Yes, bro. So I understand. So if somebody is guiding somebody, then he also in some way has to take responsibility of taking him to that step. And personally also, like if it is a personal initiative, then one has to understand that this is the aspiration. At least he should have the right aspiration. Initially, he may start with it. So he should be honest with his motives. So this is what I'm doing, but I want to know. And he should also make some initiative, make some endeavor to improve his consciousness also through more sadhana and all while doing that activity. So that way, so that is how it generally happens. But one should make some endeavor to improve the consciousness. Consciousness also does not just automatically improve, but one should consciously try to make some attempt.
So my further question on that, that if somebody starts with repression for any activity or with maybe relationship or any activity in the spiritual progress, he starts with the mentality of repression, but still after prolonged period of time, the purity is not coming to the stage of tolerance. Then he understands that something is wrong. That repression is an example of repression and something. So what should be the action for? He should skip that activity or that particular thing, and then again like contemplate on what he's supposed to do in that situation. So what is your
yes, bro. So very good question. So if the repression is not going, then it may not be his adhikar to do that. Like Krishna, so that's what, if one is attached and he is not able to overcome that attachment, so then he can take guidance and consult Shastra and sadhus and see what can be done, whether he can take a little lower step or he can do the same thing in a little different way. So that is how, like, it can happen with ashram decision, like different things. These things come up. Somebody doing more service, but they are not able to cope up with, they are not able to sacrifice. Somebody may commit for let's say giving so much donation, but they are still attached, they have some requirements. So then like this, many cases this come. Okay, so any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, we will proceed to the next section in the knowledge of spirit soul. So now Krishna again emphasizes the similar concepts in a little different way to give more inspiration, confidence for Arjuna. So the next shloka, Nashato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata.
Nasate vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate
satah.
Ubayoropi drishtantas tvai anayostatvadarshibhi. So here Krishna is again emphasizing that the body is going to dwindle and the soul is going to remain unchangeable. This difference you can understand by now Prabhupada his purport is going to explain how we can actually realize this difference. That is through devotion to Krishna. So that's it. So I'll read the translation. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. There is no endurance of the changing body, that the body changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science. and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and mind. That is the difference between the matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing, the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of the truth, both impersonalist and personalist. Yeah. So this is the beginning of the Prabhupada then continues. This is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself, the difference between oneself and the Supreme being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. So to know the understanding, so to know this theme, one has to understand also the relationship between the Supreme and the Jiva, the Ishvara and the Jiva. Only by the grace of Ishvara, the Jiva can be purified. The Jiva's desires will be purified, then he can realize this difference. So just the theoretical knowledge is not sufficient, but the grace of the Ishvara is needed. And also thorough study is also needed. You have to thoroughly study. That's why Krishna spends almost 20 verses on this topic. So in different angles, Krishna tells this so that we understand it properly. I would see. Okay. So now Krishna says, Krishna is going to explain now in little more details of the soul. So now Krishna is going to explain how the soul is symptomized by consciousness. Avinashi tu tadvidyena sarvamidam tatam.
Avinashi tu tatvidhi enam sarvamidam tatam.
Vinasham avyayasya yena kaschit kartum arhati.
Vinasham avyasasya na kaschit kartum arhasi.
Okay, so Prerna Mataji, can you read translation? You have to
That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul.
Yes, perfect.
This verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Everyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasure of the body in part.
Yes. Continue. Or as a whole.
Or as a whole. So this spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pain and pleasure of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptoms of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness.
Yes.
The soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Shweta Upanishad confirms that Balagraha Sata Balagrasata Balagrasata Satadha Kalpitasya Chabhago Jivasa Vigneyasa Vigneyasya cha Anantaya.
Kalpate. Okay.
Anantaya. Okay. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as one.
I can take this one. When the upper point of a hair.
When the upper point of the hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 part, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Similarly, the same version is
This shloka you can skip. You can read translation. There are innumerable.
There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of the spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atom, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spread throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of presence of the soul.
Okay.
Layman,
Matas, thank you. So Prabhupada is saying the consciousness of the spirit soul is no. So the symptom of the spirit soul is consciousness. So if somebody is conscious means then the Atma is present in the body. We see that a dead body does not have any consciousness. So the science, earlier science also has a conception that consciousness is a product of chemicals or it's a product of brain. But there is a feature, there is a phenomenon called qualia. Qualia means if we study the brain chemically, it is basically a circuit. So a circuit can give electrical signals. It cannot give the experience of seeing something. So we see that if we see projector, if you see the CPU, it gives signals to monitor, and monitor has the ability to display, so it displays. But electrical signals in themselves cannot give you an experience. So chemically, if you see, the brain only has the circuit. It's basically a circuit. So how brain is able to give experience? So that is something beyond brain which is giving the experience to the individual. So this phenomenon is called qualia, because of which even scientists also they also are thinking about what is consciousness. So many scientists also they reject the theory that consciousness is a product of matter. So we will see a small video about it. Let's see.
Dear Evelyn, the world is full of information. Light waves, sound waves, thermal radiation. So, how does our brain translate this into experience? Our brain is essentially a collection of atoms that processes information, but processing is different from experiencing. How can personal experiences arise out of non-personal stuff? These personal experiences, by the way, are what we call qualia. Let me explain with the use of this cup of coffee. There are plenty of facts about it. It is a liquid mixture of H2O and ground coffee beans with a temperature of around 70 degrees Celsius. Now, my brain can process that information much like a computer can, but with the processing of this information comes an experience of the coffee itself. It is warm, invigorating, and tastes like melted heaven. The problem is that a fully objective, mechanistic description of the brain in terms of inputs and outputs ignores an important aspect of being alive, the subjective experience of consciousness. Mapping the brain is not the same as mapping conscious experience. The philosopher Frank Jackson puts the problem like this. Imagine that somewhere in the future there is a neuroscientist called Mary. For her entire life, she's been stuck in a black and white room. She has never seen color, but she has studied the physical process of color perception. She knows literally everything about the physical process of seeing colors. Then she sees color for the first time. When she does so, she learns something new, what it is like to see color. But she already knew everything about the physical process of seeing color, so the qualia of her color perception clearly cannot be described in physical terms. If it could be, she wouldn't have learned something new upon experiencing it. The hard problem of consciousness is this. We will one day be able to fully objectively describe brain processes, but experience is a subjective, personal thing, so not described by objective processes. How then does consciousness arise from the physical at all? Sweet dreams.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, so now many of the scientists also accept that consciousness is not from matter, but it is something from beyond matter. And our devotee BA scientists also, they are going to build up on the same. They are going to start from this concept and going to build up the model in the exhibition in RUVP. So from consciousness, they will go to the matter and spirit, and from there they will go to evolution, origin of life, then they'll go to origin of universe. So there is also a channel, YouTube channel called Atma Paradigm, in which in this way our philosophy is explained, starting from consciousness. So so the symptom of the soul is through consciousness. The symptom of the soul is consciousness. Consciousness has a spiritual origin, but not a material origin. So for that, qualia is a good example. Okay. And then Prabhupada in the purport goes on further explaining like how the soul is situated in the center of the body. So if we see, the soul is held by the subtle body. The soul is connected to the subtle body. It is connected through ego. And the subtle body is connected to gross body through prana, through the airs, life airs. So that is how it is connected. So that is how pranayam, when we do pranayam, so the mind gets controlled. So that is the link. Now here Prabhupada tells about how there is medical evidence. The concentration of energy at the center of heart also indicates that the presence of the soul there. So the individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the super soul. And thus all energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles which carry the oxygen from the lungs gather energy from the soul. So when the soul passes away from this position, the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of energy is the soul. So here means of course it's not soul is in the heart, it is in the region of the heart. But we will in the subsequent shlokas we study how soul is inconceivable and it is spiritual, it is not material. So soul is not a material particle. It is so it is not affected by heart transplant and all. So heart transplant is like a king getting a new simhasan, a new throne. So in that way, it doesn't make any difference to the soul. Okay, so now based on the previous explanation, how soul is permanent, Krishna again tries to inspire Arjuna to fight. Let me see. Yeah. Antavattu me deha nityasyokta sharirinaha.
Antavatta ime deha nityasukta sharirinaha.
Anashino aprameyasya tasmad yuddhashva bharata.
Anashina yasmad yuddhasya bharata.
Okay. So Krishna is telling the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. So Krishna is telling, Nashito vidyate bhava, na bhava vidyate sata. So based on that, Krishna is telling material body is anyhow going to dwindle. So the material body of Bhishma and Drona is anyhow going to come to an end. And they are going to be spiritual. So as spirit souls, Bhishma and Drona are going to be there. So therefore, please fight. The purport is the material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. So there is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation. Because the spirit soul cannot be killed, cannot be harmed. So Bhishma and Drona are going to be there eternally. We cannot stop that. And Bhishma's body and Drona's body are going to be destroyed in anyhow, in due course of time or in the course of fighting. So there is no point of lamentation. That's what Krishna is telling. Because the living entity as he is cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved for any length of time or permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. So the function of the spirit soul is to do his dharma. So Krishna is telling, do your dharma of fighting to Arjuna. Yeah. So the soul, Krishna is again telling this thing that and the soul is not going to be affected by fighting. So let's read it. Yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam.
Yayenam veti hanti hantaram yayenam manyate hitam.
Ubhautau na vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate.
Ubhoto na vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate.
So here Krishna is again saying the soul is not going to get killed. What is going to get killed is body. And the soul actually is not killing. So here Krishna is saying when the soul is following dharma, and in the course of that dharma, if the soul is happened to kill somebody, so then actually the soul is not exactly killing. Means the soul is not going to be responsible for that. Means is not going to be punished for that killing because he is following dharma. So that is what Krishna means. It's not like Krishna is telling that, no, you can kill. So Krishna is not giving free license for killing for everyone. It only applies for when somebody is executing his dharma. In the course of dharma, if one has to kill somebody under the dharma, so then Krishna is telling that one is not responsible. Means one will not be punished for that. So the translation reads like that. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, but the self slays, nor it is slain, not nor is slain. So when an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from the subsequent verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all increase killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Ma himsayet sarva bhutani, never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsical. So yeah, this shloka is not to give free license for killing. In general, as per the laws of the Lord as well as of the state, killing is prohibited because killing causes unnecessary pain and it disturbs the cycle of evolution and it creates unrest in the society also. So yeah, so that's what killing is prohibited. But in the course of dharma, if someone has to do that, so then one is not punished for that. Okay. So now So now after the tolerance section, Krishna again reiterated that the body is destructible and the soul is not going to change. So based on that, he inspired Arjuna to fight. Initially, he inspired Arjuna, you should tolerate the distress and happiness you get in the due course of your fighting. The distress of being separated from Drona and Bhishma and the happiness of the kingdom you get. So that you have to tolerate. Again, that toleration also is based on spiritual duty and spiritual understanding. So that you do, and now Krishna is again telling you should fight because you cannot kill Bhishma and Drona spiritually. What you are going to kill is only the bodies of Bhishma and Drona. So that anyhow is going to happen in natural course. So that is one thing. Now, Krishna is now going to give more further characteristics of the soul in this shloka. These are famous shlokas and also important shlokas to know the characteristics of soul. Na jayate mruyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya.
न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः
Ajo nityaya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire.
अजो नित्यः शाश्वतो अयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे.
Okay. So here at least 3 characteristics of soul is told. First is na jayate mruyate va kadachit. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time, which means the soul did not get destroyed even in the past and is not going to get destroyed in the future also. The soul is always going to be unchanged by material things. So he has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. Nayam bhuta bhavita va na bhuya. So soul is eternal. It is eternally existent. In the point when it comes to eternity, there is no conception of beginning or end. So that's why it is called it. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. So in that way, the qualities of soul are he is unborn, he is nitya, eternal, shashvata, ever existing, and purana, but primeval, is old. So these are the qualities of the soul. And these qualities cannot be changed by anything material. Yeah. So let me read the purport of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada explains these things here in the purport. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. So the soul does not take its birth, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. So that's why we use the terms, he has appeared in this body. For great souls, we call it. And while leaving body, we say he has left the body. It's not he has died. That's not very appropriate. He has passed away. We use the word passed away. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, therefore, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we see the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. So we see the pastime of Srivas Thakur in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he has a son who gets bitten up by a serpent when the Kirtan of Mahaprabhu is happening. So then he dies. But Srivas Thakur, he comes to know, but he does not want to disturb the ecstasy of Mahaprabhu, so he does not tell. And he tells his family members also, don't tell it. If you tell, then I will commit suicide. He does not want Mahaprabhu's ecstasy to be disturbed. So, but Mahaprabhu comes to know, then he asks. So then he brings the small child to life. So then he says, oh Lord, I have different parents in the previous birth. Now I have these parents of Shivas. Now my service is done here. Now, by your blessings, please allow me to proceed to the next life. And we also see in the pastime of Chitraketu that Narad Muni and Angira. Chitraketu Maharaj was he does not have a son, so then he asks Narad Muni and Angira Muni when they come to bless him with a son. So they tell that you don't deserve, but you want it, we will give you, but he will give you both suffering and happiness. So then a son named Harshasoka will be born to one of the primary queen, but the other queens get envious and they kill the child. So then Chitraketu and his wife becomes very much becomes very much sad. So then again, that time Narad Muni and Parvat Muni comes. Then they bring the child to life. So then the child says, no, which parent? I have this parent in this life, that parent in this life. So which parents are you talking about? So that way, the soul is never comes into birth. He is eternal and he is passing through different bodies. So only the birth and death only pertains to the body. So with this knowledge, we should not be disturbed in our spiritual duties. So our spiritual duties mainly attend to our ashrama responsibilities and all, and also our varna things, being ethical and being honest. So Prabhupada continues here. The so-called old man therefore feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body does not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. So yeah, again, this the child, so the relationships also formed are based on the bodily things. It's not a soul. It's not exactly related to the soul. But the soul, as part of Varnashrama, it has the duty of being a parent and all. So he has to do his duty. But he should not think the relationship formed based as eternal things. So again, here Prabhupada is quoting another shloka, similar shloka from Upanishads about this thing. Okay. So now again, Prabhupada talks about the super soul and how if the soul is not connected to super soul, it gets entangled in matter. So here again, Krishna is again telling Arjuna to fight based on the eternality of soul. So the shlokas, things come repeated just to create the emphasis and make the understanding more clear. Veda vinasham nityam enam ajam avyayam
Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajam avyayam.
Katam sapurushah partha kam ghatayati hanti kim.
Katham sa purusha partha kam ghatayati hantikam.
Okay. So the translation is, O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal and unborn and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Immutable means changeless. So the soul cannot do it, means the body does it, and the soul is not exactly can be killed, only the body is going to get killed. Yeah. Of course, now here Prabhupada talks about violence. So when violence has to be used, when violence should not be used. In the purport, maybe we can read the purport. Mukundapad Prabhu, can you read purport?
Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace award capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the course of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book of mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king of king's punishment
of
king's
hanging a
punishment
murderer.
of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and thus Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such a violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is the full is with full knowledge. So there is no possibility of sinful reaction.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thank you. So that's what when violence is done with under dharma, so then it is fine. So sometimes people will have no accusations about demigods, about even Lord, and know how you can kill these demons. So that accusations come mainly because if somebody is in bodily consciousness, they think that losing body means it's death. So that's why they get affected. Like, you know, some demon is killed, you should not kill. And also, some human rights activists, when some terrorists are being hanged, or some very big criminals are being hanged, they also get affected because the people are in bodily consciousness. So they think that body is all in all. That they don't have the knowledge of soul, and they don't have the knowledge of experiencing spiritual happiness, or that spiritual life. That experience is not there. So they cannot. So that's why they cannot relate with somebody being hanged, so that in his next life he will be purified of his sinful reactions and can live a more pious life. So they cannot relate. So that's why they unnecessarily they revolt against the things and all. They oppose unnecessarily and all. Okay. So yeah, here it's not like every war means this applies. This only applies to righteous wars, which is in tune with the scriptural codes. So this does not apply to the current Russia-Ukraine war. So both are nonsense, attached to body and are selfish. Okay, so maybe we'll do this shloka, and then maybe we'll see a video, and then we'll end with it. Okay, so this shloka also again tells about the characteristics of soul. So the 20th shloka, it is told that the soul is not born and is not going to die at any time, not in the past, not in the future, not in the present. So it is nitya, it is eternal. Now here the concept is how soul transmigrates. So the analogy is through vasamsi jirnam. Okay. Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grihnati naroparani.
वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि
तथा शरीरानि विहाय जीर्णा अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि.
तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णा अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि.
Okay. So the translation is, as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. So here Arjuna is saying the soul may be indestructible, but with the destruction through war of those bodies known as Bhishma and others, which gave them happiness, we will deprive them of their happiness. This is the sin. So this is what Arjuna is saying. If it was not so, then scriptures prescribing atonements for such killing would be useless. So the answer to this objection is given in this verse. Yeah. So Arjuna is saying the body is anyhow going to die. So that is the thing. So Arjuna is saying if we deprive the soul of its body where it is enjoying, then it is wrong. We should not do it. But it is anyhow natural. So as also told in Dehinosmin Yata Dehe, the similar thing again is telling it is going to anyhow be natural. So it's not wrong. If it is done in a dharmic way, means while doing dharma. So Prabhupada is again explaining, change of body by the atomic individual soul is an accepted fact. Even the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has been explained in previous verse, which is Dehinosmin Yatadi. So as we put on new garments when our current clothes get old, so similarly the soul changes its body. Again, Prabhupada gives the example of the two birds of the soul and super soul, and how the forgetfulness of the relationship is the cause. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not focusing this because this is not the focus of the shloka. So that's why means these aspects can be read. And if we focus on this devotional aspects, it may a little distract us from the flow. So that's why I'm not focusing on that. So Arjuna is advised here with by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his old grandfather and his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight, so that they may be at once cleansed of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to a higher status of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. Okay, so before ending, we'll just see the video and then we will end. One more video. Okay. What will go to the next time? Okay. Yes. Mhm.
Every one of these graves you see contains a human being just like you. Every one of these graves you see contains a human being just like you. These graves you see contains a human being just like you. See contains a human being just like you. They once used to watch television, just as you are now. They once used to watch television, just as you are now. They too would get up in the morning, wash their faces. They too would get up in the morning, wash their faces, had breakfast. They once used to watch television, just as you are now. They too would get up in the morning, wash their faces, had breakfast, and go to work or school. They once had people they loved, celebrities they admired, and cars, houses, and bills to pay. They too had their special moments, celebrating New Year or their birthdays, perhaps.
Okay, so I think this video is not good. I will try to make it better, and then maybe in the next class we will see this. Okay.
Roji, can we share this video link in the group also?
Yeah. I'll share it. Maybe you can see that. It's a good video. It tells about how the temporariness of life and shows it. Otherwise, reading it is makes it monotonous. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just revise. Okay. Before ending, any questions on what we have discussed on the concept of soul and its various applications, various aspects of soul? Okay. Anyone? Okay. So if there are no questions, I'll just revise. So today we have seen Arjuna's surrender. Arjuna knows the problem, the dosha, and how he's getting confused in his duty, and he asks Krishna. So the solution for material perplexities is not material solutions, but a spiritual solution of submitting to a spiritual master. And Arjuna's desperation, and then Arjuna surrenders, then Krishna starts speaking, and Krishna initially straightforwardly chastises Arjuna. Then, yes, Kishore Madhav Prabhu, can you have some question?
Prabhu, about as it has been mentioned here, within the body there lives a soul as well as super soul, correct? So how they live together into the body? That was my first question. The second question, that we have said the physical dimensions of soul, but what is the nature of soul? Whether it's a liquid, solid, or air, or what's the constitution of the soul?
Okay. Yeah. So the second question I'll answer first. So the soul is a spiritual particle. It's not material. It is told just the dimension is given to show that the soul is in a very seed form. It's not fully manifested its potencies and all to make that point. It's not exactly a material dimension. Soul is a spiritual particle. We will come to know in the next second verse. It's not that the soul is just invisible, but it is inconceivable. So that achintyoyam. So that verse we will get. Okay, the first question is how the soul and super soul stay. Yeah, they stay in the region of heart, and this concept the concept of super soul we will actually study in 13th chapter, the Paramatma. So the shloka and all will come in that 13th chapter. So so they both stay in the region of heart, and the body is actually more controlled by Paramatma, the super soul, and the soul only just desires. And based on if the soul deserves, then the Paramatma fulfills it through Prakriti. So that is how it is. So that analogy of the two birds on the tree, that is given to explain that. Okay. Okay, Prabhu, is it?
Prabhuji, I have a small question.
Yes.
So it's in continuation with this. So after the death, this Paramatma continues his journey with the soul, or it again gets merged into the Supreme Absolute? How exactly it happens? Or soul alone used to suffer in the Swarga and hell. How it is?
Yeah. So Paramatma is there as long as the soul is in the material world. If the soul either wants to go to Brahman or wants to go back to spiritual world, then the Paramatma unmanifests himself. So Paramatma is going to be there with the soul always. Means as long as it has a material body, Paramatma is going to be there. Okay. I'm just continuing the summary. So we saw then Krishna initially chastises him, then tells in the first shloka how Bhishma and Drona are spiritual beings. They are eternal individuals. And then the second is the soul is unchangeable, and it is just transmigrating through body. Within the life also it transmigrates from boyhood to old age, and then it goes to another body. So then Krishna tells Arjuna, based on these two facts, you need to tolerate happiness and distress that you encounter while discharging your duty. So Bhishma leaving his body, and Arjuna getting kingdom. So these are all temporary, they will end. So the happiness and distress you need to tolerate while you are doing discharging the duty of a Kshatriya. So we saw how the difference between tolerance and repression. Repression means because for some selfish desire at a material level, you try to restrict yourself and control your senses and all. But tolerance means it is based on spiritual knowledge. There is a focus on spiritual. There is spiritual focus. So if someone genuinely tolerates based on spiritual knowledge, then one goes towards liberation. So then Krishna again comes to Avinashi, Tadbud, Tadvidhi and all. So again he tells how body is temporary and soul is permanent. So again he tells Arjuna to not to fight, and he says soul is neither slain, soul is neither the slayer. So then in other two shloka, one of the shloka we saw how the symptom of the soul is consciousness, and we saw the phenomenon of qualia, that the brain can give electrical signals and all, but brain as it is known currently cannot provide experience. So the experience is coming from consciousness, which is something beyond matter. So that is the scientists say. And then the qualities of soul, najayate mruyate va kadachit, and vasamsa jirnani yata viha. So same things are in one sense again revised by Krishna. So this is what. So in the next class we will see some more qualities of the soul, and then Krishna finally again tells Arjuna to fight, and then it goes to Karma Kanda and Sakama Karma and Nishkama Karma. Okay, so I'll share the video, and thank you. Thank you very much for your attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhishya Vipasa Krishna Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.